In this section, we're going to talk about application discovery within vRealize Network Insight. So starting off with application discovery, and getting applications into Network Insight for analysis for day two troubleshooting and visibility, we need to take a look at some of the things that we're going to be utilizing in regards to how we can populate applications within vRealize Network Insight. Now, when it comes to applications and when it comes to looking at security planning and migration planning, we need to be able to have the application context. It makes it much, much easier to do specific use cases when it comes to troubleshooting, security planning, migration, whether it's from one data center to another or from the on-premises data center to, let's say, a public cloud or hybrid cloud environment. And then also keeping in mind that when it comes to creating applications, it can become tedious when you have to do manual creation or via API calls and so on. So we have to look at different ways that we can simplify discovering applications within vRealize Network Insight. One of the methods that we can do is we can take and utilize tag-based discovery. So if you're using tags within your environment, your virtualized environment, you can utilize those tags to actually discover applications much quicker within vRealize Network Insight. We also can utilize things like naming convention-based discovery. So utilizing just the names of the virtual machines as an example. Also various different naming context, utilizing other things like regular expression pattern builders to discover naming convention in regards to discovering those applications. If you have applications, especially that are named very similar to each other in context. We can also pull from a CMDB, such as ServiceNow, and be able to ingest those applications from that CMDB. And this is a good use case also to true up your CMDB after you've imported those into vRealize Network Insight. We can utilize our other discovery methods to make sure that the CMDB is trued up within a solution like ServiceNow as an example. And then lastly, we can utilize flow-based application discovery. This is utilizing machine learning and doing analysis on flows and other contexts and allowing us to basically study the communication within various infrastructures, such as virtual machines, physical IP services, and so on, to be able to automatically discover what makes up an application, what are the application boundaries, what are the dependencies, and much, much more. So let's start off with application discovery based on tags. So we can utilize vCenter tags within vRealize Network Insight, and we can do custom attributes or AWS tags also. We also support NSX tags if you're utilizing NSX tags within your environment. We can see that we have under the custom attributes, we have the attributes and the value that are identified. And when we're looking over here at the right, we can see that the vCenter custom attributes translated to discovered applications. So we can see the actual application. We can see things like the tiers of that application, the number of VMs that are falling within each tier, and then the definition that's defined based off of the API call that we're doing to get that from vCenter. So this is an example here at the top. You can see we found two applications utilizing those custom attributes. And we also have 261 unclassified virtual machines. So those are indicating that they've not been caught by a tag specifically within the environment. So we've discovered two based off of those tag attributes that have been defined within vCenter. Now we also can look at utilizing things like application discovery via VM names. So when the application and the tier name is in the VM name, this comes in very handy. So you can see within the application discovery here within vRealize Network Insight, we can utilize things like regular expression to be able to build out application. And this will find the application and the tiers of the application. So we can choose by the scope and to select all virtual machines. We also can group by tiers utilizing regular expression also and add additional conditions if we wanted to. Now over on the right, we can see here our found apps and tiers from a validation perspective. So we can see utilizing this regular expression. we found 200 applications and 402 unclassified virtual machines. Utilizing group by tier, we found 403 application tiers and 0 unclassified virtual machines. And the unclassified equals basically not caught by tag. So this is also again indicating that we've not caught or discovered those virtual machines based off of tags. Let's look at when the application discovery using the virtual machine names. So when the application and the tier name again is in the VM name, utilizing that regular expression helps us build out the discovery of those applications. So here we can see as an example where we've stated VMs where name is like, and then we put in this case, the app-15C, and then we can see the various different applications that are related or found similar with that name. Now, utilizing regular expression, we can also do discovery utilizing things like the application name. We can do it via the tier name, and then this is going to show us the applications that have been discovered based off of those expressions. So we can see the application name, we can see the tiers discovered under each one of those applications by expanding over here, and then seeing the tiers in this case, and then the number of virtual machines and the definition that was defined. So we can see the regular expression that was used to actually match those applications and those tiers in this example. If you're not familiar with using regular expression, we have a full syntax where you can actually go through this link here to be able to take a look at how regular expression is utilized for this feature set within vRealize Network Insight. You can see here, you can do different ways of things like of using dashes inside the name. So when we have like app:15-BE-1, the application name, we can see the regular expression defined, the tier name, and then we can see that the result app equals app:15, tier equals BE. And then we can also see where in this case, if we have app-15::BE as the tier name, so here's our application name, and then we can actually see the regular expression for the application name and the tier name and what that result will come out to be. This is also reporting in regards to being same as middle. So this is going to show the application name and then the application name regular expression and then the tier name and then how that would actually be broken out from the result. Keep in mind also that this is representing the captured text. So when you see in the brackets here a period, asterisk, and then also without the bracket, it's going to be utilized as a wildcard. You also want to make sure separators don't overlap with the name. So as an example, when you have an application that says app-15-BE1 and then you have your regular expression, it will produce application name equals app and tier name equals 15. So we want to make sure that separators don't overlap with the actual name there. Now, also utilizing the VM names within application discovery, we can utilize things like the application name. So here's our app name, and then here's our application name regular expression, and then this is the result that's going to result from that, utilizing that expression. Or the tier name. So we've got the same tier here, the app tier, and then we can see the tier name and regular expression, and then we can see the result is app. And again, this is our captured text, our wildcard, and then another reminder to make sure that the separators don't overlap with the name. Now this is looking at application construct discoveries using VM names. So this can be a little bit more complicated when it comes to regular expression. You can use specific lengths. So in this case, we specified a specific length for an actual virtual machine. And then here now we can see the application name and the tier name, and then here's our result. So it's breaking out the app, which is LNX ORA, and the tier is database or DB. A non-result in this case, utilizing the naming convention for the app as app-15::BE1::1. This is going to show you the application name and the tier name. And then we get no result because A through Z doesn't match BE1. A-Z doesn't allow the digit. So this is an example of a non-result discovery within vRealize Network Insight utilizing regular expression when it comes to construct discovery. Now, taking a look at application discovery results. So within the application dashboard, we're going to be able to see our applications that we have discovered, and we have the choice. So we're actually looking at the discovered applications here. And this could be utilized based off of tags, names, ServiceNow, or flow-based application discovery. Now, to understand and kind of get an idea of how the application dashboard works here, especially under discovery, we can see things like our results based on this specific regular expression. We can also see the discovered app list, including the unclassified virtual machines. We also can hover over each one of the hexagons here, which represents an application. And that's going to provide us things like with the application details, the name, the tiers, the members of the VM, and then there's also a quick save button that you can utilize if you don't want to save the application over on the right here. Looking at from an application discovery perspective, you can also filter and also save those applications. In this case here, I can come in, I can see the applications that have resulted based off of the regular expression that's been utilized in this case. And so I can see the application name, I can see the number of members of the tiers, the different tiers that have been identified, the members, and then the definition that was utilized. And then if I want to save this application, I can just click save here, and it will save the application, and I can rename the application if I want to, or those tiers. And then I can see that saved application over here under the saved applications within vRealize Network Insight. Now, you can also click on the actual and highlight the application, and it will show you the various other dependencies that this application has with other members of specific applications or other applications. So this is showing you communication that's occurring with other applications. We'll look at that a little deeper once we've saved the application and have viewed it within our application dashboard. Again, the app details will be included, which is going to be flows to other apps when you highlight specifically on an application. Now, when we get into utilizing ServiceNow and extracting the ServiceNow CMDB, you can see the structure within ServiceNow and how we're going to actually discover those applications. So it's showing you in this example, the application name. It's going to show you the tier names. It's going to show you the VM names within discovering, utilizing the ServiceNow CMDB architecture for applications defined within that CMDB. Discovering those applications, we need to add ServiceNow as a data source within vRealize Network Insight. So what we need to specify is we do need to choose the collector that will access the ServiceNow instance and pull the data from the ServiceNow CMDB. We need to insert or provide a ServiceNow instance host name, so we can put in an IP address or an FQDN. We will need to put in a read-only, so this is a username. So for under the username, it can be again a read-only username. It does not have to be a admin username. And then we're going to provide a password for that read-only user, and then click validate, and it will come up. And hopefully, if the connection is good, you will get a validation successful. Lastly, you can choose to customize the CMDB configuration. Now, this is only required for custom service mappings inside ServiceNow. So depending on how you have your ServiceNow infrastructure set up when it comes to the CMDB, this is an option that you can utilize if you're doing any type of custom service mappings within your CMDB. You can give it a nickname, and then you can go ahead and click submit, and it will start pulling the information from that CMDB within ServiceNow. Now, when looking inside the ServiceNow console, you can also come in and you can see where you've configured the ServiceNow user. In this example here, you can see we have an admin user, and then we have a read-only user as an example. So you have different roles when you're defining, and those could be, again, admin or read-only. And we can utilize read-only users within ServiceNow for discovery purposes, since we're just pulling that information via read-only. Looking at application discovery using multiple inputs. So this is more of an advanced way of doing application discovery. So this is discovering using the names and tags, or a combination of names and tags to discover applications. We have the capability here of within the scope, we can choose our scope, and in this case, we do manual selection, and we specified VMs where operating system equals Microsoft Windows Server 2016 or later, 64-bit. For our group applications by, we've chosen name, and we did matching expression, and we provided a regular expression. And then the group tiers, we're going to do it by either name, and then you have the choice of either doing security tag, security group, or just tag. So this is where you can utilize both a combination of names, tiers, and special conditions such as VMs running specific operating systems that you want to focus on. So again, this is group using the names or tags. And for each one of these, you're going to see how many matches have been found, how many application and unclassified VMs, or how many tiers are unclassified virtual machines. And then we can click on Discover, and we'll see those results. Now let's look at probably one of the most popular ways that applications are discovered within vRealize Network Insight, and that's going to be utilizing flow-based application discovery, which is a newer feature that we introduced within the last couple of years here within vRealize Network Insight that utilizes machine learning to discover patterns and be able to identify applications automatically for you within vRealize Network Insight so that you're not going and utilizing other methods such as tags or combinations of tags or regular expression, that depending on what your preference may be. So the goal of this is obviously to discover application boundaries. We want to know within the infrastructure, our communication profile of the VMs can be very similar. The network communication graph of an application won't be disconnected. Also looking at detecting the tier boundary, we're going to look for similar neighbors, similar hosted ports, similar access ports. And then lastly, we're going to also look for common and shared services. So those are going to be VMs having a higher degree of incoming and outgoing connections. When it comes to things like Active Directory, DNS, NTP, could be LDAP, and much more. Now, taking a look at this, you have a bunch of virtual machines within your infrastructure, and you can see all this communication that's occurring. I mean, zigzagging, it just looks like a big mesh of mess in regards to trying to figure out what makes up an application. So that's where the machine learning magic comes in within vRealize Network Insight and takes that mesh and that mess of virtual machines and figures out how those are actually broken out. So it can, take this visualization here and now put it into a visualization of applications and dependencies. We can see that we have the capability of putting these into tiers such as database, application, and web for this specific finance application. And here's an example of the marketing application when it comes to database tier, app, and web. And then we can see shared dependencies such as Active Directory and DNS services that those two applications have upon those specific services. Utilizing flow-based application discovery within vRealize Network Insight, we're going to want to come in and we're going to want to select the discovery scope. So under flows here, we can come in and we can choose things such as all flows, or we can come in and just do entity, and then we can choose the entity. So we have many different ways that you can choose. So again, remember, this is running across multiple cloud infrastructures. It could be on premises, it could be up in the public cloud, it could be VMware Cloud running on either AWS or AVS or GCVE and much more. We can choose an entity that we want to focus on. So this is going to be things like data center folder, AWS VPC, Azure VNet, vCenter, and we can scroll down and look at other options. Now we can also come in and we can do another option of doing application and tier name, and that allows us to come in on how we want to do that discovery and view the application. So this is selecting the naming preference. So in here we can do applications, we can discover them via VM names, VM tags, security groups, security tags, or load balancer virtual servers. So you have many different things that you can choose. And once you choose those, then you can define the tier criteria. And then we also provide an option if you want to upload a CSV to name applications and tiers, you can do that also. So this is more manual, but you can see here that utilizing this sample CSV by clicking download here, this will provide naming will be based on the VM to application and tier name mapping, and that's based off of that file. So once you click submit, the magic is going to start running, and you're going to see the machine learning algorithms are going to start running. And then after about 4 to 6 hours, you're going to start to see the results of that. And then keeping in mind that this is a service that is constantly running in the background, and you can pause and stop it by clicking on the three dots next to the modify in the scope. And that is going to allow us to actually pause or stop that. A couple things to keep in mind when you're doing the flow-based application discovery is because this is constantly studying those different constructs and flows and so on within the infrastructure, we're going to see different things like confidence levels, and you can filter these down based off of medium, high, low. So the high is going to be a high confidence level. You're obviously going to have a medium confidence level, and then you're going to have a low confidence level. The low and the medium, meaning that you want to allow more time for the algorithms to run based off of the flows and the data collected, depending on how chatty the applications are. Obviously, that's going to speed up the process. And then you're going to see it broken out by tiers, virtual machines, and then the application name. And then we can hit the plus to expand this and see the various tiers and see VMs broken out within those tiers. Now, from a granularity perspective, you also can filter down utilizing things like medium, fine, or coarse. By default, medium is used. And then you're also going to see when the auto discovery either has last updated or if it failed for any specific reason, we'll mark that over here in the upper right-hand corner. This is an example of showing where you can actually pause or stop the auto discovery feature. You can click on the three dots here and pause or stop if you want to pause or stop that feature within vRealize Network Insight. Once our applications are discovered, whether it's utilizing any one of the methods that I covered, we can then, after they're saved, come in and look at those applications within the application dashboard. So this is our current application dashboard, and this is going to display various different data such as the alerts occurring within that infrastructure for that application, both virtual and physical. We can see the incoming traffic, outgoing traffic, any changes or distribution, the number of flows. We can also see if any flows are unprotected or degraded when it comes to TCP round trip time. We can see if the application communicates with resources or services or even end users via internet or like VPN as an example. We're going to be able to see what countries they're coming from. And we're also going to be able to see the number of virtual machines, physical IPs, and Kubernetes services that make up that application. In the application map here, we're going to see our various tiers. So we're going to see the example in this simple 3-tier app. Here's our web tier, our database tier, and our application tier. These lines represent flow communication that is currently occurring between those tiers. And then we can also see things like the underlying switch infrastructure that is being utilized by these specific virtual machines within each one of the tiers. So in this example, I've got 3 virtual machines. I've got one under database, one under app. It's going to show us which switches are being utilized from a top of rack switch perspective. And then we can see things on how those switches are performing. And then also look at things like which ports are being utilized on the switch by those virtual machines, because those can obviously change host, be vMotion, or if you're running DRS, can be motioned over to another host. So we're keeping track of which interface on the top rack switches are actually being utilized for that traffic to traverse. Now, some of the other things that we can do over on the filters is we can filter down by looking at either all flows, unprotected flows, and degraded flows. So when it comes to degraded flows, these are flows that we're seeing a deviation of TCP round trip time based on the baseline that we do within the product. So if we start to see it deviate, they're going to light up under degraded flows, and you're going to see these red lines here between, this is the Detroit branch and users at the Detroit branch communicating with the video tier. And then we can also see the Rotterdam branch and users communicating with the video tier. By clicking on the line here, we can get in and look at the degraded flows and get all of the data and view each individual flow to see what the deviation is and if it's something that might be impacting the end user's experience in this example with the front end of this specific application. Now, within the application dashboard, we can see the tier details. We're going to see how many virtual machines, how many physical IPs, how many flows, how many unprotected VMs. And this is going to show us a list of all the virtual machines. And we can expand each one of these to look at the details for the virtual machines that are grouped within those specific tiers. So this is the tier overview So within this actual diagram, if I clicked on the actual tier, that's where it's going to open up and show us this specific data for that tier. And we can go in and dive into each one of the members of that tier. So this will include the virtual machine, the physical IPs, again, the Kubernetes services, the network flows, and any unprotected VMs when it comes to applying microsegmentation within NSX. You can also add more filters here to see more filters to get more granular depending on the specific data that you're looking for within that tier. We can also take a look at how we can utilize the application dashboard for troubleshooting. So again, looking at the application dashboard and expanding this a little bit further, we can take a look at our application topology, as I mentioned. We can take a look at all events that are related to that application. So these can be out-of-the-box alerts. Again, keep in mind, this is both for the overlay, the underlay. It could be a hybrid application. It may include some public cloud or some VMware cloud mixed in with the application, depending on where the application resides and how it's actually deployed. But we will see all events and alerts that are occurring, including analytical alerts and so on, which could be static or dynamic within vRealize Network Insight, along with any other alerts that could be defined and utilized, such as user-defined alerts and so on. Now, we're also going to be able to take a look at the properties for the actual application managers. So this is going to list your vCenters, your NSX managers, or even your public cloud account or your VMC account. It's going to include all of that information depending on if you're utilizing multiple managers within your application infrastructure. This is just using a single vCenter that all the VMs are provisioned under. So that's why we're only seeing info in regards to that specific vCenter defined there. And that's the management components. Now up at the top, you'll notice that we have the option of choosing various different things. We can look at what's new, metrics, flows, and microsegmentation. By clicking on microsegmentation, that's going to show us our network flows and our microsegmentation planner. We can also click on metrics, which is going to provide us data such as metric graphs on the network, CPU, and memory and disk utilization of each member of that application. And then we can also click on flows to look at all of the flows. And then we can also click on what's new, which is going to show us things like different traffic distribution changes within the application, any new members that were added to the application or deleted, and much, much more.